know when I stand up front here, it's often, if none of you have been up here before, we just have a long row of lights, which gets pretty bright. Not near as bright as being on a stage someplace, but it is pretty bright. But there's some brightness coming over here from my left side. Sort of on the right side, about halfway back, there's sort of a bright light on somebody's finger. Ashley? What do you got? She got an engagement ring. Ashley Kirkland got engaged. Now, don't get upset with me, Ashley, okay? It was Sue told me to do that to you. So you can talk to her. But congratulations. Marriage. Excitement of marriage. The upcoming marriage. Our daughter, Anna, is going to be getting married in about 3 months. There's an excitement of that. And with marriage comes family. With family comes lots of aspects of families. And we're called to be together, called to be one, called to nurture each other, called to be supportive of each other. About 11 years ago, 12 summers ago, first summer that the older kids and I lived here in the parsonage. Most of you know the parsonage is right next door. The house right next door. Greg and Kathy live in it now. There's 2 hills that go down to the bottom part where there's 2 walk-in doors. Well, on the north side, I took most of the weeds all out. First summer, put rocks there. Bought $100 worth of strawberry plants. I was crazy. I mean, I never spent that kind of money on anything before. Spent $100 on strawberry plants. Planted all the strawberries. Had 3 beautiful rows of strawberries. And we were planning to just have wonderful strawberries grow there. Well, I don't know how many of you know, I would just as soon put AstroTurf down on a yard and blow it off like once every couple of weeks and be done with it. Flowering and gardening is not my thing. Within the first summer, those $100 of strawberry plants had all died. They died because I didn't take care of them. Didn't nourish them. Didn't give them what they needed. A new marriage, you need to be encouraged and need to give what each other need. There needs to be a nourishment for each other. What we're looking at this morning is that idea of nourishment. The idea of being engrafted into something and receiving the nourishment that we need, not on our own, but from somebody else. If you've been with us for the last 2 months, we're going through the book of Galatians. The book of Galatians was written by the Apostle Paul. Paul wrote it to the churches that he went to on his first missionary first missionary journey. The book of Galatians, and hopefully all of you, have actually opened up the book of Galatians and read through it, maybe not just once, but hopefully many times through. And if you haven't yet, I encourage you. We have a few more weeks that we're looking at the book of Galatians. The whole book of Galatians is about the idea that there were people who were saying, you can become a Christian, but you also have to be circumcised and follow all the Jewish laws. So the Gentiles, the Greeks, had to, according to these Jewish Christians, not only accept Jesus Christ, but also follow all these laws. The Apostle Paul says, no. It's not all those laws. It's accepting Jesus Christ into your life. And once you accept Christ into your life and the Holy Spirit comes within you, you will be nourished in a new way. You're going to be nourished with what's called the fruit of the Spirit. It's interesting because the Apostle Paul, we're going to read it shortly, the Apostle Paul says it's the fruit of the Spirit. We tend to think about fruit, and oftentimes when we think about this whole idea of the fruit of the Spirit, we think about apples and oranges and grapes and lots of different fruit. But it's a singular here. The fruit of the Spirit is. It's like a red apple. An apple can be red, or it can be green, or it can be yellow. And it has a skin. And it's got the inside part that you eat. It's got the seeds within it. It's got the core. It's got all the different parts, but it's still the apple. The fruit of the Spirit we're called to have within our life that we're going to look at not in the sense that some of us say, well, we have one of the fruits, but not all the other fruits. Or we have one fruit that's really big, and all the other fruits are really small. Could you imagine going to the grocery store and picking up some grapes, and have about 15 grapes, and have one of the grapes be really big, and all of the other grapes be really small? Wouldn't you wonder what was wrong with that grape? How come the one was so big and all the other ones were really small? The reality is, it's not that we pick and choose. But if we're going to be living in the Holy Spirit, we're called to have all of this fruit that grows within our lives. What does the Apostle Paul have to say to us here? He says in Galatians chapter 5, verses 16 and following, "So I say, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of your sinful nature." It's interesting, the word live. The word live there is also translated in walk by the Spirit. You need to live by the Spirit. You need to walk by the Spirit. If you were here last week, just earlier in Galatians, the Apostle Paul asked the Christians in the area of Galatia, who cut in front of you? Who got you off your course that you were walking on? There's a whole theme here that Paul is talking about walking with the Spirit. Paul said last week, who cut in front? Who got you off the course? Now he says, verse 16, I say, live by the Spirit, or walk by the Spirit of God, and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature. For the sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit. The Spirit, what is contrary to the sinful nature. They're in conflict with each other, so that you do not do what you want. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but if I did, hopefully I would have 100% of you would raise your hands. Who of you have actually at times done what you knew you should not have done? You know it in your mind, you know it in your heart, you shouldn't be doing it. But you've done it anyway. You know it in your mind, you know it in your heart that you shouldn't be yelling at your spouse, that you shouldn't be yelling at the kids, that you shouldn't take the next drink, that you shouldn't be doing the marijuana, that you shouldn't be going to that certain show, that you shouldn't be hanging out with certain friends, that you shouldn't be... You following me? So I would hope that all of us would be able to raise our hands, because the reality is if we all didn't raise our hands, we're not really being in tune to the Spirit then, and the Spirit's leading within our lives. I think the truth is, 100% of us, at times, we do things we know are wrong to do. But we still do them. Why? Because we're sinful. But the Apostle Paul here is saying, okay, you know you shouldn't be doing it now. Now, how are you going to stop? How are you going to change? How are you going to walk by the Spirit and not walk by the flesh? Walk by the Spirit, not walk by the flesh. The Apostle Paul says, if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. The acts of the sinful nature are obvious. Sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, and witchcraft. The word witchcraft there is an interesting word. The Greek word is pharmakia, which means mind-altering drugs. And what's one of the big businesses in Portage? Pharmacia, mind-altering drugs. I mean, when I read that and saw that, I was like, wow, that is really interesting. How that word, that Greek word, fits within. And what the Apostle Paul says, that we need to be careful with the sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage. See, a lot of us would say, up here, a lot of you would say, oh man, we haven't done any of those. But then Paul gets into this, hatred. How many of you maybe haven't said, I hate so-and-so? How many of us maybe at times haven't started discord? Did you hear that so-and-so did this, or you hear that so-and-so did that?